What's happening, everybody? Welcome to Syracuse Basketball Postgame, presented by Krause Health, the exclusive healthcare partner for Syracuse Athletics. Perhaps we need to take the entire Syracuse basketball team to see our friends at Krause Health, because clearly something's wrong with this team, and it is December 21st. It is the first day of winter. Syracuse basketball is usually what carries us through the wintertime. And at the rate this team is going and playing and how fans are reacting to it, it's pretty abundant that Syracuse fans are going to find something else to do. Monitor the transfer portal, pray for Kyle McCord's fifth-year waiver to come through, speculate about next year's football team, maybe just skip to lacrosse, which does begin in January, and those schedules will be out soon. At this rate, people are going to check out at a rate I have never seen. As passionate as Syracuse, as passionate as a fan base as you're going to find generally in the country, right? But even the diehards of diehards, the fans that have been there since Manley Fieldhouse and before, are sending me messages left and right saying, I've got better things to do than watch this team. And I don't get any pleasure in saying that. I'm not doing that to be negative, as I've been accused of before. I am sharing what people are saying to me, and not only people on social media, but especially our friends that are Syracuse Sports Insiders that text us. And we're going to get to plenty of our Syracuse Sports Insider feedback today, because I think they are saying what most fans are saying out there at this point and capturing kind of the spirit of the thing, as it was once said in a great movie. As the Orange lose today to Maryland, 87-60, that's the worst loss of the season for Syracuse. Let me just put that into perspective for you. Syracuse played Tennessee earlier this year. They're the #1 team in the country. They lost that game by 26 points. They lost this game in New York City, in Barclays, which used to be a home away from home for Syracuse. That is clearly no longer the case, by 27. Worst loss of the season. Maryland's a good team. Maryland's not quite in the rankings. They're 10-2. They're certainly going to work their way into the rankings at some point. That's a good team, and we saw that today. Not that Syracuse put up much of a fight to counter that, but just a little perspective there that a 27-point loss to this Maryland team and a 26-point loss at Tennessee, the #1 team in the country, as things mount there. So what's going to start to happen here is the conversation about Adrian Autry as the head coach of this team is just going to start to dominate all conversations about this. I've been through enough football coaching changes through the years that everything else just becomes Charlie Brown's teacher, wah, 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 wah. The day in, day out happenings of this team, look, we're going to cover it, and we're going to be there for you to do it. I'm going to watch the games. Mike Waters will be there for you. Donna DeToto will be there for you. Chris Carlson. We may be the only ones left at some point if it keeps going this way for this team. So we're going to document the day in, day out happenings of this team and what happens. But what is going to start to dominate the conversation is people are just going to start wondering about the future, right? Because if Adrian Autry has not lost the room, he's going to if it continues at this rate. And people are really going to start to question him as head coach. They're going to start to question everything about Syracuse basketball because, guys, this is just an unwatchable product right now. This team scored 17 points at halftime. That's the lowest amount of points they've had in a half this season. They could not close out on defense. Tennessee went 12 of 25 from three-point range. And by the way, this game was actually close for a while, believe it or not. Syracuse ends up on the day, let's see, with 21 turnovers. Maryland gets 25 points off those turnovers. That's actually a stat that could have been much worse if Maryland was shooting better earlier in the game. They eventually, of course, pulled away, got 87 points, hit 12 threes. As we mentioned, Miguel had 6 of those threes. All day, Syracuse losing shooters, not closing out, just no effort on defense whatsoever, right? You have another game where Chris Bell struggles. Chris Bell had 2 points in this game. Continues to just be a non-factor for Syracuse, not only from the three-point line, but at all in 17 minutes. Elijah Moore and Donnie Freeman, your 2 freshmen, lead in scoring. 16 for Moore, 15 for Freeman. Freeman got into foul trouble early, ended up with only 2 fouls on the day, so he sat for a bit, came back in, 15 and 7 for him. Eddie Lampkin had 9 points and 10 rebounds, almost a double-double. Kyle Cuff with 10 points off the bench, but none of this matters. Syracuse got to the free throw line twice. I mean, in a closer game, I think we'd have grounds to kind of complain about the officiating, honestly, because Syracuse goes to the free throw line twice. But you're only going to go to the free throw line twice if you don't move on offense. And that's the other thing about this. I wish I had an answer for you here. When people text me, our Syracuse Sports Insiders, on social media, when the conversation's happening, people are like, what is the offense? I don't have an answer for you. And I realize I'm not a basketball coach. I'm just a guy that watches basketball and tries to analyze it here on this podcast and in other places. But I don't know what I'm seeing either. But I do know what I'm not seeing in the case of there's no movement, there's no ball screens, they don't run an offense. I don't know what it is. I don't know what they're trying to do. It's just the same iso ball nonsense that we saw at the end of the Boeheim era, right? And for Jim Boeheim to do an interview this week and say that this is not coaching, I mean, then what is it? I mean, I know he's not going to rip Autry in a public forum. I mean, I get the position he's in. Boeheim's usually pretty honest about these things, but then what is it? And it's not all on Autry. Don't get me wrong here. I'm not going to make this all about Autry, but how could this not be about coaching at all? It's pretty sad if you're just pointing at the players and saying it's their fault. This always is on coaching, especially when we don't know what the offense is. They're not closing out on defense. They're 11 games into the season here, and this is how they play, and it's the how they play which you have to take in consideration here. I know J.J. Starling's out, but for Seth Greenberg on the ESPN studio show to look in the camera and be like, you guys have to consider that J.J. Starling, one of the best guards in the ACC, is not in this game and is not with this team, and that's a factor. That's fair to say, but we've seen this all year when JJ was in the lineup. I don't have fault with JJ Starling. JJ does change the complexion, the energy, and the way this team plays, but they were still losing games like this. Not by 27 points, but some of the same issues with JJ in the lineup. So I don't have an issue with JJ, and there's some players that are out there that I don't have a big issue with, right? They're a part of a system that they're trying to execute from the coach. This is on coaching. To say this is not on coaching is, I mean, come on. Don't insult people's intelligence and say that's not part of the issue here. Of course it is, right? So there are individual players and individual moments that you can get behind and can appreciate here. But I mentioned it, 25 points off turnover. Syracuse turned the ball over left and right. They had a week of practice going into New York City, a place that used to be a home away from home. That's why they play all these games, and they're all at Barclays. They're never at Madison Square Garden anymore, but it doesn't matter. They could go play at Rucker Park in a snowstorm. It doesn't matter, right? I'm hearing from people that are in that crowd, and there's one texter that I'm going to get to from our Syracuse Sports Insiders who said he lives, let me see if I can pull it up here. Yeah, Michael G. I'm a mile away from Barclays, and I refuse to go watch this debacle, having zero confidence in Autry to coach our team up, right? People that were in the building saying there's no energy in here, there's a lot of Maryland fans in here, this is in no way, shape, or form what it used to be. And why would you make the effort to go and support what you're seeing other than the fact you're a Syracuse fan when this is the effort you're getting back, right? So this is what I'm saying, guys. The day in, day out conversation about basketball, and I can give you more stats on what happened in this game if you didn't watch it, but see, that's the feedback I'm getting from people. 15 steals for Maryland, 5 for Syracuse. Maryland assisted on 26 buckets. Syracuse ended up with 17 at halftime. That was like 10-1, right? But I can go through all the numbers here. They out-rebounded Syracuse, points in the paint, which Syracuse did adjust the starting 5 in this game, because Maryland was coming in with a bigger lineup, but it's Miguel who ends up hitting 6 3-pointers in this game. The inside game was not the problem, and they got pounded in the paint in terms of points. It was closing out on shooters, which no one did all day. And you're not countering them. They ended up with 8 threes on the day. Freeman hit one. Lampkin hit a 3-pointer. Kyle Cuff, Lucas Taylor hit a couple, Elijah Moore, but I mean, all year long, this has been an issue with this team. And by the time those threes came, it was when, Maryland was running second stringers out there and it was in garbage time, right? The day in, day out of this team is not going to matter anymore to people. They just are going to want to talk about big picture stuff. Next year, who's the coach? Is Kiyan Anthony still going to want to come to Syracuse? Is Sadiq White still going to want to come to Syracuse? And I think the answer to that is yes, by the way. But how much of that is tied to Autry? Are you committed to the coach or are you committed to the program? These are going to be questions that will start to be out there if this team continues on this rate. The ACC is not exactly a world-beating conference this year. So when people are like, oh, man, they're going to get ripped in the ACC. I don't know. I mean, the ACC is pretty bad this year. I don't care who you're playing. It was Big Ten today. Tennessee was the SEC. 0-6 now against Power 5 teams. And a lot of those were games that Syracuse could not close. They were closer losses, 27 points today. Other than Tennessee, they actually were pretty close games. Not today. In the last 4 seasons, okay, when Syracuse plays on ESPN or a broadcast network, so that would be ABC, CBS, Fox, 6-16 record. Syracuse is bad when they're on ESPN. Syracuse is bad when they play in New York City, which, again, used to be this home away from home, but has not been, right? They lost 3 games in New York City this year. Now, Texas and Texas Tech were closer games. Free throws matter, going back to those games. But you lost 3 games in New York City. You keep losing in New York City. You keep losing on ESPN. You go on national television. By the way, the 2 games this year that you played on ESPN, you lost by 26 and 27 points. Right? Every time a big audience gets an opportunity to see Syracuse basketball as of late, they fall on their face. So if you are a fan in Central New York, your reasons to go, 3rd worst attended Syracuse-Georgetown game, to go back to that one on a Saturday, which they lost by 4 points, right? Your reasons to go when they're in New York City, if you're a fan that's within driving distance there, are dwindling. Your reasons to simply grab a remote and turn on the game are dwindling because they do not give you a return on investment. And again, I don't get any pleasure in saying that. I'm not being negative. As the kids would say, I'm keeping it real here. This is what you are telling me. This is what our Syracuse Sports Insiders are saying. This is what people are saying no matter where you go. And I get that Twitter is what it is, but this is what people tell me when I see them in the produce section at Wegmans, right? I could walk outside, take a walk with my dog right now, and I'm going to have 10 people, my neighbors, come up to me and be like, hey, what was the score? I didn't even watch the game. It's December. It's the first day of winter, and the thing that gets people through the winter around here, and, you know, wherever you shall be, because Orange fans are everywhere, but think about how here in Syracuse, and it's a bright wintry day. It's an appropriate snowy day here in Syracuse on the first day of winter. They're looking for other things to do. I'm getting texts from our insider saying, hey, thanks for the score update. I'm Christmas shopping. I'm doing anything else but what? And I've said it on this show before, and I will say it again. There was a time not too long ago, friends, when Syracuse basketball was on, the world stops in Syracuse, New York, or wherever you are as a Syracuse fan. Does not matter what else is happening. I'm watching that game. That's no longer the case. And that's partially because technology is advanced. You got Uncle Brent that can text you, tell you what's happening. You've got social media. You can just, okay, while you're out Christmas shopping, oh, look at the score. They're down by 30, right? We made the right choice to not watch that game. This is not good on all fronts. I don't think you need me to be obvious and tell you that, but that's where we're at here. So you get what I'm saying? Like, I'm going to tell you the day-to-day. I'm going to update you on the basketball stuff. We're going to follow that for you because that's our job. That's what we do. But the conversation is just going to revert to certain basic parameters. It's going to zone in on why is Autry the coach. It's going to zone in on certain things. I've seen it before, and it's starting to happen again. Can they turn it around? That's possible. JJ comes back. If they find some kind of rhythm, again, the ACC, guys, it is far from a world-beating conference this year. So maybe they're going to be right at home in a conference where beyond the top 2 or 3 teams, it's just going to be a huge logjam in the middle of mediocrity. So you've got to be fair that there is a lot of basketball to be played, and they might find their groove there. But again, time after time, these are not fair weather fans. These are not the comers and goers. These are not the drive-byers. These are, you're going to see it in our Syracuse Sports Insider responses here shortly. Let's start going through them here. These are people that would schedule their lives around Syracuse basketball, fans since Manley Fieldhouse, been around for years, that now are like, why am I wasting my time with this? As somebody that grew up here in Syracuse, New York, and understands what this program means to people and how they invest their time and their money and their energy and everything into it, if they're starting to check out, That's a big red flag. That is a siren emoji that they've got to recognize here, which, again, you got to play the season out. What can you really do? For the people like fire Autry, it's okay, well, then what? I mean, you have a head coach on staff that could carry you through, but that's almost worse. That's like a panic move at this point, which they're not going to do, right? I'm not going to waste my time with it. I get questioning Autry's, Jim Boeheim won't do it, but Autry's coaching and strategy and X's and O's, like, that's all fair game. That's what sports fans do. They're not going to make a change during the season. It's not going to happen. I'm not going to waste my time with that, to be honest with you, because I just know it's not going to happen. I mean, sports are weird. If it gets bad enough, maybe they'll consider it. But, I mean, you got to let him play out his second year. And as we've said, the one thing is the beacon over the hill. You've got Anthony and Sadiq White. Sadiq White, by the way, who had an incredible 22-11 for IMG last night against La Lumiere, who J.J. Starling played for, one of the better AAU programs out there. I mean, Sadiq White, guys, talk about Kiyan Anthony. That's amazing that he's coming here. Sadiq White is one of the best recruits in the country. And has been committed to Syracuse all the way, is still committed to Syracuse all the way. I'm not worried about that. It's natural, and I understand why people start to worry about things like that. Are they still going to come? Yes. The answer is yes. But what kind of program are they coming into, right? What kind of situation are they coming into? And again, I get no pleasure in saying that. I really don't. I want to see things get better. I want to see this team become watchable and worth your time. And maybe it still can. But, man, they just seem to be regressing, and people don't know what they're watching. And they need to know what they're watching, okay? And, again, it's not an apples-to-apples comparison, but what Fran Brown has done so well with football is you know what you're watching. Winning helps, but you know what Dart is. You know what the mission is. You know what you're investing in. You know what you're a part of. They feel like they're part of it. Syracuse basketball fans right now are like, what am I a part of? What am I investing in? What is this thing? What is the orange standard? We don't know. And that's an issue. So enough of me. Let's see what our Syracuse Sports Insiders had to say. And again, I'll give you the password. You can go in my text messages here and be like, oh, you're just picking out the negative comments to emphasize your point. No, this is what people are saying. If you can find some positive comments in there, I commend you. This is what people are saying. And I get it's the emotions of a game and everything, but this, this is all day, every day. This is not just during games, though, of course, people's emotions are certainly heightened during games and their frustration spills over. So keep that in mind, if you want to put that into context a little bit, take it with a grain of salt if you want to, but here's what they're saying from our Syracuse Sports Insider. Sandra says, this is so painful to watch. I think I'll go finish up my Christmas shopping. Now I know how Louisville fans felt. Yeah, Louisville had to bottom out before they reset and maybe on their way back to being one of the better programs in the ACC. Michael G., I brought that one up earlier. Mile away from the game. A mile away, didn't want to go. Had no reason to go. Ryan W., I think I'm done with your squad, sadly. Matt S., is it Festivus yet? I bet we all have some grievances we want to air, and the feats of strength cannot be SU's offense. Again, what is that offense? What am I watching? What am I supposed to be watching? What would prevent you, if you're Autry right now, from basically publishing the playbook and saying, hey guys, this is what we're trying to do? It's not working wherever you're trying to do, but you got to give, again, like I was saying with the football team, you got to give people a reason to get on board with you. What are you trying to do here? What is the offense? Throw me a bone here. Don P., Syracuse basketball has become a chore, like taking out the garbage, something I feel like I have to do but get no enjoyment from. Rich R., I have been following Orange basketball for almost 50 years. This is the lowest of the lows. These are longtime, dedicated, 50-year fans that were breathing in sawdust at Manley Fieldhouse saying this. Jim B., not that Jim B., we have figured out the orange standard, getting embarrassed on national television. I gave you the stat. Last 4 years on either ESPN or a broadcast network, they are 6-16. I did not include ESPN2 in that. I did not include the ACC network in that. But if I ran those numbers, it's probably not going to be much better, right? The reason I bring that up is either ESPN or a broadcast network. That's when they're in front of the most eyeballs, right? When Syracuse is in prime time, if you will, And you know what they should be thanking their lucky stars for today? That the college football playoff was on, that the NFL was on today. This is one of the greatest football scheduled days in a long time. So what they should be thankful for is more people were watching that. But ESPN is on in every sports bar in the country. ESPN is on in every airport in the country. ESPN is on everywhere. And just somebody random taking a break from Christmas shopping, having a beer in a sports bar somewhere, looks up at ESPN, and what do they see? They see Syracuse down by 25 points. Again, on ESPN. That's what I'm telling you. That's a problem when you go on national television that much and you're not even competitive. Bert C. says, Brent, thanks for the updates, but I opted to watch Penn State SMU, and SMU got run in that game. Not looking good for the ACC. First time in my life I opted for anything over Syracuse basketball, and my watching days go back to Manly. Let me read that again. First time in my life I opted for anything over SU basketball, and my watching days go back to Manly, right? This is what people are saying. Roger W. says, Brent 100. I did errands today. It isn't worth my time anymore. Autry seems like a nice guy, and I guess he gets another year, but I won't be tolling in front of my TV or my computer until lacrosse. And if you're like a diehard fan out there that's hearing these comments and you're saying, how dare you? You're not a real fan. You're not sticking it out. I get that in some ways. It's hard to be a fan sometimes. You got to really suck it up and dig in as a sports fan, but I think these comments are fair too, right? Going back to that comment we had a minute ago, this feels like a chore. Guys, remember, sports are entertainment. And if you want to thump your chest and say, I am there every game no matter what, good for you. And I don't mean that in a sarcastic way. I mean that. Think of those football fans that stuck out Greg Robinson, that were there game in, game out when this was not the cool thing to do. They're getting their payoff now, right? Because now everybody's in on football again, and they can say, I have been there from the beginning. I sat there and watched a lot of bad football to get to good football. It's the opposite now. These are fans that have been there and seen competitive, good NCAA tournament teams, and over the last decade, it is just with a couple of blips on the radar, right? 2016, 2018, 2021, but on the bubble every year, and there was NCAA sanctions in there. You don't need me to give you the history, you know. They're seeing the opposite there. They saw a consistent winning program that's sliding down the hill now. And what we're seeing is, I believe there's a comment here in a minute that will, let me just jump to Cooper here. This was my worst fear for Syracuse basketball. As soon as Boeheim left the program, it would turn into a mid-major and be non-relevant for the next 20 years, right? Now that's, we're not there yet, but that was the fear people had. That was the prediction I made for years. I would say when I was doing radio and when I was writing columns, and still feel this way. Watch this team not make the tournament for a few years and the people will flee. And I don't mean that as an insult. I know this fan base. There is a contingent of fair weather fans out there. They're gone. Like they're already checked out. The problem, the issue, the red flag, the siren emoji, the longtime fans that I'm hearing from that are like, wake me when this team's good again. Wake me when this team's watchable again. That is the problem that you're now experiencing, which they have not before. That's the thing. They always had those fans. They're losing those fans right now, right? It's tough because you want to support your team. These are college kids, but they're also now paid professionals. So you're losing that whole thing. How dare you talk about them? Look, they're 18 to 22-year-old young men, many of them getting paid now. So the expectation rises about what you need to see. And let's just step away from the negativity for a moment. Defend what you're seeing. Defend what you're seeing, right? Be in that position. If you are going to sit here and say, well, you guys are missing the whole thing. What, you don't see the offense they're running? You're going to sound like a homer. You are going to sound like a paid homer that's getting cut a check from Syracuse Athletics if you do that. If you're fair and objective and you look at this from a certain point of view, how can you say anything but this isn't good, right? When good things happen, we will compliment it. When good things are there, when they win games and they do things they're supposed to do, I'll be the first to stand up and do it, right? Jaquan Carlos was great the last 3 games. For example, not great today. Didn't score, 0 for 2, 12 minutes. I mean, because as Autry brought up, I believe I saw in the postgame, I have not watched this whole postgame yet, full disclosure, but they got all over Carlos because Syracuse didn't have another guard out there. Chris Bell had a terrible game again. Jair Davis, he starts, doesn't score, 0 for 2, plays 12 minutes. Autry mixed up the starting lineup today because of the bigger lineup that they had. The guys that started and got the opportunities to take advantage of that didn't work. And Davis has been great, right? Davis has been one of the reasons to watch this team. Davis had an awful game. In a game Syracuse where he started and Syracuse needed him in this spot. I don't know about Chris Bell anymore. I don't know what to tell you. He has fallen off a cliff and his game's not getting better. And it's too bad because Chris is the word I'll use is this, guys. He's philosophical. He's very thoughtful. When you talk to Chris Bell in the locker room after games, I appreciate what he says. He's so thoughtful about it, right? He will admit, I'm not telling tales out of school here. He said this after the Georgetown game, that he can get in his own way sometimes because he thinks too much. But whatever they're doing with Chris Bell, in terms of just the X's and O's, they've got to just hit the reset button because it's not working. Bell just chilling on the three-point line, just waiting for open shots. It's just not working, right? So when you're this far into a season and you're always tinkering things, right? But when you don't know what you are and you're trying to find that and you're trying to fix it, that's a big problem, right? So again, when there are good things to pull out of this, I will absolutely do that because I don't just want to sit here and bang on these guys all day, but that's what they gave us today. So that's why we're getting comments like this from Mike V, who says the hardest things about watching this team are 1, can't figure out what we're trying to do, no identity. 2, don't seem prepared for the opponent. And 3, not getting shots for anyone I might want to see shoot the ball. Joe M, I never thought I'd see the day, and I'm 61, where Syracuse football was really, really good and Syracuse basketball was really, really bad. Let's just hope things improve after today. From Michael C, a week off and this team seems to backslide. I would love to see Red succeed, but I'm beginning to question his capabilities. Mark T, the players can't be this bad. It's not the players they have, absolutely not, or absolutely no coaching. They are completely discombobulated. They have no training. They have no strategy. They have no clue. Willie M, is there a way to unplug the season and plug it back in? Yes. Can we Control-Alt-Delete this thing at this point, right? Lucas S, I am more entertained by watching Kyle McCord smirk on replay than this basketball game. So if you're not familiar with that, so Kyle McCord did an interview this week when he was asked if he was considering a 5th year or a waiver, and the smirk on his face, I'll tell you what, I would love to play poker with Kyle McCord because his poker face was not good in that moment, right? And now we found out, Chris Carlson reported this yesterday, if you haven't seen, guys. McCord sought a waiver. It was denied. He's now in the appeal process with the NCAA trying to get a 5th year at Syracuse. And if he gets a 5th year at Syracuse, let's just be honest here, guys. This is where we're at. If Kyle McCord gets a 5th year to play football at Syracuse, they might as well shut the basketball season down because no one's going to pay attention to basketball the rest of the year. It is going to be all football all the time. And you know what Uncle Brent's got to do? I got to give the people what they want, right? We might just have to shut this show down. I don't think they're going to let me do that, but that's all people want to talk about. It'll be the gift that keeps on giving the whole year, like the Jelly of the Month Club that Clark Griswold got into. Clark, that's the gift that just keeps on giving all year round, right? If McCord gets that waiver, and even if he doesn't, that's all people are going to want to talk about. Basketball, did they play today? Did they? As it was said in another movie, do they still have a team? Rob M, the apathy has kicked in, Brent. You know I've been a diehard my whole life. This team is so blah, and they're not fun to watch. Guys, I know Robbie. I see Robbie at the Dome. I've known Robbie for years. He is as diehard as it gets. He's checking out. That's a problem. Frankie, yes, same thing. One of our great Syracuse Sports Insiders. You've seen Frankie on this podcast. This is the most fundamentally flawed and poorly coached team I think I've ever seen in my years being a Syracuse fan. I don't even know what I'm watching anymore. How on earth does this team look so bad game in and game out? What really terrifies me is this team had a week of practice and looks like this. Steve B, we've gotten to a place where Syracuse is unwatchable. At one point, do I stop planning an afternoon around watching this team? We may be there. A couple more here. Micah T, who was there at Barclays in Brooklyn. Brent, second time I've come to watch Syracuse and Brooklyn this year, and while you could at least say free throws matter against Texas, today was just stomach churning. There's nothing making me want to watch this team the rest of the season. These are your fans. These are the most diehard people. I know several of those people, of those texts that I read, some that I don't, that are just diehards that are Syracuse Sports Insiders, because they are the best Syracuse sports fans out there. That's how they're feeling. That's what they're saying. That's the frustration spilling over. And I want to reiterate here, I get no pleasure in saying that, but I've got to tell it like it is, and I've got to reiterate what they are saying. If they were on here and this was just a giant Christmas party of Syracuse basketball, that's what I would say, and that's what I would do, and that's what football is. Again, especially if McCord gets that waiver. Look out. Like, it's going to be a Christmas party for weeks around here if that happens. That's where we're at. That's how quickly things can change. Football is king. Basketball is just kind of there. And you could say that people aren't real fans and they're bailing. They say all you want. The real fans, that's how they feel. So where do we go from here? Well, that's on them, really. If they can show some kind of organization on offense, if they can fight in the, and again, an ACC, I hope I'm not like giving you false hope here, because I don't want to do that. But the reality is the ACC stinks this year. It stinks. So Syracuse actually might be able to be competitive in that league because there's a lot of bad teams in the ACC. So that might get them to get things going. When they get JJ back, which is they're thinking about mid-January at this point, we'll see. He had Mike Waters had a good photo of this. You should check it out on Twitter. So the wrap on his hand was a little less than the one that's been. He was shooting some free throws at Barclays because free throws matter, as we know, even when you only hit 2 in a game. They were 100%. JJ's getting better. JJ will bring a life, an energy, a leadership to this team that is desperately needed. But you can't let one guy going down sink your battleship, right? But maybe things get better there. I want to try to keep some beacon of hope alive here for this season. But if this continues, that just becomes noise, and all people are going to care about is next year, what are they doing about the coach, and those macro discussions that will take over this thing. That's where we're at. Merry Christmas. Right? I hate to be so negative here in the holiday season, but that's where we're at. I would hope nothing more that the ghost of Syracuse basketball future comes to me, pats me on the head, and says, oh, Brent, remember back around Christmas time, just how negative you were, how little you knew where this team was going. I would love nothing more than that, because nobody likes talking about a bad team. Nobody likes talking about an unwatchable team, night in and night out. But that's what they are right now. So that is the task handed to Adrian Autry. Sorry to put so much coal in his stocking today, but that's how what people are feeling right now. 87-60, worst loss of the season. So it can only go up from here, right? We'll end on a positive note in that sense. Programming-wise, of course, we got the holidays coming up here, but speaking of holidays, Syracuse, San Diego, against whatever's left of Washington State with all the players fleeing to the portal there, but game on for now. They're playing that thing. We will have a post-game show after Syracuse takes on Washington State in the Holiday Bowl. We know Kyle McCord's playing in that game. Whether he gets to play beyond that game, we'll certainly keep an eye on that. So we'll have a post-game show there. Next basketball post-game is Bucknell. They play December 28th at the Dome. That will close out non-conference play. The Syracuse begins ACC play on New Year's Eve against Wake Forest. Both of those games are at the Dome. We'll see what kind of crowds go to those games. And just like we said, we've been talking about for the last half hour here. We'll see what kind of buzz, if anything, exists for hoops going into those games. But we'll have the post-game show to follow. And let's see. Is there something I'm forgetting there? Well, just until the end of the year. And then, of course, back and better than ever in 2025, bringing you post-game shows and all the happenings in the transfer portal, podcast as needed with exciting football news, right? But being a Syracuse Sports Insider, you guys get this all the time. You get messages from me. You can text me directly your thoughts, your questions, your opinions. Certainly did today during the Syracuse-Maryland game, and I love getting all the responses from you guys and what you want me to ask players and coaches and the latest news in the portal with hoops, lacrosse around the corner. Being a Syracuse Sports Insider gives you direct text message access to me. You can try it free pretty much the rest of the year. You could try it free for 2 weeks. It's just $3.99 a month after that. We would love for you to become a Syracuse Sports Insider today. 2 ways to do that. You can text the word orange to 315-847-3895. Hit that link on your screen as well. Join subtext.com/Syracuse Sports. Yeah, just want to shoot the breeze, talk Syracuse sports. That's what I'm here for. Let's do it, all right? Okay. Just double checking my math here. Yes, this will be our last show before Christmas. So Merry Christmas, everybody. Hope you have an amazing holiday. Happy Hanukkah to those of you out there as well. Happy holidays. Covering all the bases here. I hope you enjoy plenty of time with your friends, your family, those that you care about, and enjoy the holidays here. We'll be back at it with another edition of Syracuse Postgame after the Holiday Bowl on December 27th. Until then, thanks for watching today. This has been presented by Krause Health, the exclusive healthcare partner for Syracuse Athletics. My name is Brent Axe. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Happy holidays, everybody, and we'll talk to you next time.